Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Ian Douglas Smith, Prime Minister of Rhodesia, said in 1975 that if there was to be black majority rule, blacks will be walking on sewage and think it normal. The reaction of most blacks was to call Ian Smith a racist. That was the easy bit. The more difficult thing has been to prove him wrong. And for Zimbabwe, we have been independent, we've had black majority rule for the last 46 years. And we have said on this platform, and we'll say it again, Zimbabwe is a failed state. In 1980, we had the potential of becoming the South Korea of Africa. Prosperous, peace, justice, and at peace with ourselves. Today, Zimbabwe is one of the poorest countries in the world. Our GDP per capita in 1980 was 6,000 US dollars. It has since dropped to 2,000 US dollars, a third of what it was. If that is not proof that we have failed to govern ourselves, I don't know what is. Like I said, dismissing Ian Smith as a racist was the easy bit. Proving him wrong has become mission impossible. Ben, welcome to the program.
Good day to you and good day to our viewers. Thank you for joining us. You see, as Zimbabweans, we have used every excuse we could think of, and we continue to think of, some of the most outrageous excuses to blame on our own failings. I mean, we have had, people blaming it on sanctions. We have sometimes gone even to the weather itself. Everybody else except us are the cause of our shortcomings and our failing. But I've listened to intellectuals speaking, and they're always talking about the whites did this, the Westerners did that, they are closing this door, they are doing all that. I've heard the likes of, Elder Maponga saying that, democracy does not work. This is why we are a failed state. And then, the most obvious thing that comes to mind is, the gold mafia documentary. $2 billion a year just on gold being stolen and being siphoned out of the country. Just gold. I'm not talking about lithium. Lithium, we don't even know who mines it. Where is it going? The whole process. Nobody knows about that. We had, 14 billion worth of diamonds that just up and went. And nobody talks about that. These are huge sums of money that could easily clear Zimbabwe's debt and be debt free and actually use some of that money to progress itself. But we don't want to talk about the obvious. We want to look for the outrageous excuse to continue wallowing in the mud. And I have to agree, look, what Ian Smith said is what we are living in. Walking outside your own house, you have to jump, a sewage pond or a sewage pool or water flowing, It's ridiculous how we have justified our failure so easily. And the worst part is many people actually believe that other elements, outside elements, are causing our problem. Yet it is us, and the evidence is there. This is the disappointing part. The evidence is there. Why don't we talk about that day? The likes of, Elder Maponga, the likes of, ZANU-PF. Why don't you talk about that and address that? Because that is the source of our problem. Corruption is rampant. It was rampant during Mugabe's era. It has taken overdrive during Mnangagwa's era. We've seen it. We've seen the documentaries. We've been told by not even outsiders, South Africa has red flagged some transactions, and none has actually even stepped up to investigate. So I have to agree with Ian Smith that he was very, very right, because this is what we are living.
Sorry, go ahead.
So it's very discouraging when you hear, educated Zimbabweans justifying our failure by blaming, other people. And we all know there's a saying that says, bad workers will always blame their tools. Just because you cannot use it, efficiently, effectively, does not mean that it's useless. Fix it.
Sorry, continue. Sorry.
So up until we address the problem and realize that, especially when it comes to Zimbabwe, it was, you mentioned that it was, an upper middle income economy already when we inherited it. All we could have done was maintain, if we couldn't take it even any further, I think we would have been a whole lot better if we had done that. But instead, we have, stolen everything that could be stolen, and are still stealing the very few that is there, and we justify it, and we cleanse our leaders so that they are not dragged into it. And we're not doing ourselves any favor when we are blaming somebody else, blaming the whites who have since even left, most of them. And yet we could have been in a better place if we had, mechanisms in place that crush corruption the moment it stirs up. But no, 46 years in, we are worse off and still coming up with some of the most outrageous excuses known to human beings.
I like this cartoon because I think in many ways it captures the essence of why we failed to govern ourselves. In the first part, it shows the ruling elite chopping off your legs. In the second part, the same individual gives you a wheelchair, and we are down on our knees thanking them. It has often been said that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. Insanity only has meaning to those who have got the memory to remember what happened yesterday. If you can't remember that somebody deliberately chopped your legs off, then you're not insane. You're incapable of rational thinking. Because that is exactly what has been happening in Zimbabwe. Our leaders are the ones who have kept us poor deliberately for their own selfish reasons. And we have not been smart enough to register that reality. And so we keep repeating the same thing over and over again. Indeed, it is in the interest of the ruling elite to keep repeating the same thing, to keep us poor, to keep us destitute. We have discussed on this platform the problem with this Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3. The very reason why the country is in this economic mess is because we have failed to hold the leaders to account. They've been able to rig elections, stay in power, and continue the looting. We have said on this platform, Zimbabwe is a failed state because we have failed to hold free, fair, and credible elections. And that is true. Mnangagwa is in office today because he came into power in 2017 on the cocktail of the military coup. He promised to hold free, fair, and credible elections in 2018. He did not do so. He rigged those elections. He also rigged the elections in 2023. This time, SADC and the AU came up with reports that clearly stated those elections were not free, fair, and credible. And he dismissed SADC and the AU's reports with contempt. Here he is insisting that he doesn't care what SADC and the AU say regarding these elections.
Kana vakatuka ZANU-PF kana ndonyanyisa kufara kuita zvakanaka ukavona vavengi vakwashi kurumbidza nekuchikanganisa ukavona vachiti ZANU-PF yakaipa farai because you are doing correct things for your country. Hongu takaita maelections edu kuna vamwe vaitaura zvisina musoro zvikanzi maelection anafamba zvakanaka ndezvavo.
So now SADC and the AU are our own detractors. And soon after the elections, the first thing Mnangagwa was involved in was this ED 2030 agenda, in which he was seeking to extend his own stay in power, illegal as he was, by another 2 years. This cartoon encapsulates that outrage. Here is an individual who got into power. The people were denied a meaningful say in him becoming the ruler. Then he steps in, and now he rigs the 2018 election, rigged the 2023 elections, and now he's extending his stay in office beyond even what is stipulated in the Constitution. And the people have been brainwashed to believe that it is in their own interest that he should be allowed to stay in. They're even thanking him for it. If that does not encapsulate the problem we have governing ourselves, I don't know what will.
You know, this cartoon that you you put forward, you know, I think it talks directly about Zimbabwe. I mean, you know, we've heard ZANU-PF, you know, complaining about sanctions as the cause of our problems and everything. And then you ask yourself, you know, they say, you know, we can't, you know, get better roads because we are under sanctions. But sanctions do not stop them from buying cars. How many cars have ZANU-PF spent just in the last 5 years? You know, cars are being distributed everywhere. But when it comes to buying ambulances for our hospitals, sanctions step in. You know, when it comes to building more schools, we cannot build schools because, you know, the rains, you know, have taken everything. We have to buy food first for the people. You know, they have never stopped, you know, themselves from getting money when they want to use it, when they want to give people, you know, for example, chicken and chips at every rally. It is believed that Mnangagwa in 2023 spent a whopping $2 billion on the campaign trail. And Zimbabwe was still under sanctions, but they had the money to blow. So when it comes to what Zimbabwe needs, the problem is with the West. The problem is with nature. But when it comes to what they want amongst themselves, the sanction story does not appear. The 4x4 cars are you know, magically available. The sanctions take a pause. And a lot of Zimbabweans actually believed that the problem of, you know, the source of our problem was sanctions and all other else, except looking and saying, hold on a minute, you're fooling us. You shot my leg off. You took it off. Now you're giving me a crutch or a walking stick. You did not help me. I was fine before. We were fine in 1980 when we inherited our country. We were very much fine. When ZANU-PF stepped in, they destroyed it. They took away that leg. So they cannot then say they are now very charitable by giving us a walking stick or a wheelchair. A lot of Zimbabweans are failing to ask themselves that question. to say in 1980, were we better off then than what we are now? And the answer is yes.
I'd like to give the final say to South Africa's former Prime Minister, Botha, who, like Ian Smith, was also dismissed as a racist. What Botha said is blacks cannot rule themselves because they don't have the brain and the mental capacity to govern a society. Again, I say that it is easier to dismiss him as a racist, but it has proven more difficult to prove him wrong. I believe we have the mental capacity. It's just that we've not exercised it. We need to exercise it. We don't owe it to the racists like Botha or Ian Smith. We owe it to ourselves. Some people have focused so much on the racism and forgotten the importance of governing ourselves for our own good, for the good of all our people. That is more important. And we failed to focus on that. And it is our own doing. Zimbabwe has the potential to become the South Korea of Africa. Even now, if we only could focus on the issue of how to govern ourselves. And one of the biggest issues, one of the hurdles in that is with the problem of those who are in positions of power and authority who believe they have the divine right to govern. And that has not, our situation has not been helped by having millions of ordinary people who consider a leader to be a demigod who can do no wrong. The cartoon I showed earlier on of somebody having their legs chopped off encapsulates that whole argument. We have got individuals who will not accept that leaders are corrupt and incompetent and continue to worship them as if they are demigods who can do no wrong. And it is no surprise that these leaders have come to exploit that weakness. They've chopped our legs off with confidence, knowing that many of us would not even remember it tomorrow. We'll accept it as a reality. What can we do about it? And indeed, when they bring the wheelchair, we even thank them for it. That has been a big mistake. We have the mental capacity like any other human being. Man is a creature of reason. We just need to exercise our brains a lot more than we have done so far. And if we don't, well, I can tell you now, Zimbabwe is not getting out of this mess. And that is the reality. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.